Eliza Chen's quarters aboard the Concordat station trembled as security forces attempted to override the lock. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, military training kicking in despite her diplomatic credentials, as she finished the encrypted transmission to Earth. She took one last look at the holographic display, showing the systematic dismantling of the planet designated only as Asset 2991. The horrifying imagery was still seared into her mind. Massive extraction vessels hovering over blue-green continents, specialized equipment methodically stripping away atmosphere, oceans, mineral deposits, and throughout it all, tiny dots representing the planet's indigenous population, herded into processing centers. Biological resource reclamation, the console had called it. The door panel glowed red. Security override in progress. 87% complete. Eliza reached into her formal diplomatic jacket and removed a small device Marcus had pressed into her hand before departure. Last resort, he'd said. She twisted the top, revealing a crystalline center that pulsed with cobalt light. 94% complete. She touched her fingers to her throat, feeling the subdermal translator the Concordat had implanted without her consent during processing. The same technology they used to ensure all members of the Galactic community could communicate efficiently. Efficiency above all, the Concordat's guiding principle. 98% complete. Eliza pressed the device against her neck, directly over the translator implant. A sharp pain, then numbness spread across her skin. The door slid open with a hydraulic hiss, revealing 3 Vekaran guards, their insectoid forms encased in ceremonial enforcement armor. Diplomatic Envoy Chen, the lead guard's translator, produced perfect, emotionless English. You have accessed restricted information. This violation requires immediate neural adjustment. Eliza felt blood trickle down her neck, where Marcus's device had extracted the translator implant. She dropped the bloody technology to the floor and crushed it under her boot. I don't understand, she said, feigning confusion. Without the translator, her words would be incomprehensible to the guards. Could you repeat that? The Vekaran's compound eyes flickered in what might have been confusion. The lead guard raised a neural pacifier, a standard compliance tool, and stepped forward. Eliza had anticipated this moment. 6 months of combat refresher training before her diplomatic mission now proved its worth. She sidestepped the guard's reaching limb, using the Vekaran's forward momentum to send it crashing into the room's console. The second guard fired its pacifier, but Eliza had already dropped to the floor. The energy pulse struck the third guard instead, instantly immobilizing it. Alarms blared throughout the station as Eliza sprinted down the pristine corridor, mentally reviewing the station schematics she'd memorized. The personal transport bay was 3 sections ahead, but the security response would be concentrated there. Instead, she veered left, toward the commercial docking ring. Attention! Human diplomatic envoy has violated Section 7.3 of the Integration Protocol. Security containment authorized, announced a melodic voice in the Concordat's standard language. A message she could no longer understand without her translator, but whose meaning was clear enough. Eliza rounded a corner and collided with a tall, willowy alien she recognized as Althean, one of the Concordat's administrative species. The alien's translucent skin flushed purple with surprise. Sorry, Eliza said, knowing her words meant nothing without translation. She pointed urgently down the corridor behind the Althean, pantomiming an emergency. The alien hesitated, then stepped aside. 3 minutes later, Eliza slipped unnoticed among a group of Nexu traders boarding their vessel. Stocky, fur-covered merchants too low in the Concordat hierarchy to merit much security attention. As the commercial ship disengaged from the station, Eliza huddled in its cargo hold, clutching the second device Marcus had given her, an emergency transponder that would signal Earth's hidden perimeter satellites once she was in range. The shepherds were indeed butchers, and humanity would need to become something more dangerous than wolves to survive. They don't understand chaos, Dr. Marcus Washington explained to the Joint Chiefs assembled in the bunker's briefing room. He gestured to the swirling mathematical patterns on the holographic display. Their entire civilization is built on perfect predictability. General Rivera leaned forward, her skepticism evident. And you're certain they can't crack this encryption? Marcus allowed himself a slight smile. The Concordat evolved with binary mathematics, elegant but rigid. Human mathematics embrace chaos theory, fractal patterns, jazz improvisations, concepts literally incomprehensible to their neural architecture. The display shifted to show surveillance footage from the Concordat embassy in Geneva. Ambassador Kaleth's aquatic transport pod glided through the hallway, oblivious to the hidden cameras that shouldn't have been possible to conceal from their advanced technology. They're watching what we want them to see, Marcus continued. While we build this, he pressed a sequence on his tablet, and the floor beneath them shuddered. The massive circular section of the briefing room floor descended like an elevator, revealing the true scale of Operation Harbinger. The Joint Chiefs gasped collectively. Stretching before them was a cavern the size of 10 football fields, carved deep beneath the New Mexico desert. Thousands of technicians and engineers swarmed around what was unmistakably a spacecraft, but unlike anything Earth had officially developed. Its sleek lines incorporated both stolen Concordat technology and uniquely human innovations. This is just one of 17 facilities worldwide, Marcus said as the platform continued its descent, each invisible to Concordat surveillance thanks to our quantum camouflage algorithms. How many ships? Admiral Chen, Elise's mother, asked, her voice steady despite the revelation. 86 combat-ready vessels so far. Another 100 in final assembly. General Rivera whistled softly, all while the Concordat thinks we're still struggling with fusion power. Marcus gestured to a section where workers were installing what appeared to be conventional missile tubes. That's the beauty of it. They're so convinced of our technological inferiority, they never considered we might adapt their own technology and improve it. The platform reached the floor of the cavern. Dr. Samira Khan, head of weapons development, met them with a tablet displaying performance metrics. The latest test results from the Jupiter facility, she reported. The hybrid drives are exceeding expectations. We've achieved 93% efficiency on the gravity inversion. Marcus noticed Admiral Chen's tight expression. Your daughter's signal came through, he told her quietly as the others examined the ship. She's on her way home. The Nexu trader will rendezvous with our extraction team near Saturn's rings. Chen nodded once, her relief visible only in the slight relaxation of her shoulders. And the information she sent. Worse than we feared. Earth isn't just marked for resource extraction. We're scheduled for complete biosphere harvesting. They consider our genetic diversity a premium asset. A technician approached, interrupting their conversation. Dr. Washington, we've detected anomalous scans from the Concordat Observatory in lunar orbit. They might be prodding the Brazilian facility. Marcus was already moving. Activate countermeasures. Shift the Phantom signatures to the textile factory's cover story. He turned to the Joint Chiefs. This is happening faster than we anticipated. The Concordat is getting suspicious, probably because of Elisa's escape. Admiral Chen's expression hardened. Then we accelerate the timeline. The fleet won't be fully ready for another 8 months, Marcus warned. Then we'll have to be smarter, not just stronger, Chen replied. What's the status of Operation Prometheus? The lunar defense grid. 70% operational, but without the full fleet. It doesn't need to win. It just needs to surprise them enough to deploy your infiltration teams. Chen turned to the other military leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe it's time to vote on accelerating our timetable. As hands raised in unanimous agreement, Marcus gazed at the massive ship before them. Humanity's first true interstellar warship, built in secret while the Concordat's watchers saw only what humans wanted them to see. The resistance wasn't just coded. It was becoming an armada. Ambassador Kaleth's environmental suit hummed softly as it filtered Jakarta's air into the specialized water-oxygen mixture required by Muran physiology. through compound eyes designed to detect predators in the methane oceans of the Muran homeworld. The alien diplomat observed human rescue workers pulling survivors from the tsunami's debris. Clarify protocol. Keyleth spoke into the secure Concordat communicator. These humans are expending critical resources on damaged population units with minimal productive capacity. The response came instantly. Standard Concordat efficiency protocols do not apply during integration phase. Allow behavioral observation to continue. Keyleth moved closer to where an elderly woman was being lifted onto a stretcher. By Concordat standards, she represented negative resource value, consuming without producing. Yet 3 younger humans risked their lives to extract her from a partially collapsed structure. What language are they speaking? Keyleth asked the translator implant. Subject 1. Japanese dialect. Subject 2. Indonesian dialect. Subject 3. Australian English dialect. Historical relationship of origin nations. Japan occupied Indonesia during planetary conflict designated World War II. Military hostilities between entities, Australia and Japan. Similar historical conflict pattern. Keyleth's respiratory bladders contracted in the Muran equivalent of a puzzled frown. According to all Concordat sociological models, these humans should be prioritizing their genetic kin and cultural affiliates, not historical adversaries. A Malaysian doctor approached, her medical tablet displaying Keyleth's diplomatic credentials. Ambassador, this is an active emergency zone. We appreciate your interest, but unless you're here to help. I am observing, Keyleth stated, the translator rendering the words in perfect Bahasa Malaysia. The Concordat documents all significant planetary events. The doctor's expression tightened. People are dying while you're documenting. Either grab supplies from that aid truck or clear the area. Before Keyleth could explain the impropriety of a diplomatic observer engaging in manual labor, a shout came from nearby rubble. The doctor sprinted toward it, leaving Keyleth's protocol violation unaddressed. Curiosity, a trait the Concordat had attempted to breed out of the Muran species for generations, stirred within Keyleth. The ambassador approached the aid truck and, after brief hesitation, grasped a container of water purification tablets. For 17 minutes, Keyleth distributed supplies alongside humans from 11 different nations. No one questioned the alien's presence once Keyleth began helping. The Concordat communicator chimed repeatedly with incoming messages, but the ambassador ignored them. That evening, as directed by diplomatic protocol, Keyleth attended a cultural exhibition, a formality meant to document Earth's primitive artistic expression before its scheduled reclamation. The Jakarta Philharmonic had somehow assembled despite the disaster, playing in a partially damaged concert hall to raise spirits and emergency funds. Keyleth had never experienced music. The Concordat had eliminated it from member species cultures millennia ago, classifying it as non-productive sensory input. The first notes of Orcs' New World Symphony struck the ambassador with physical force. Muran neurophysiology, optimized for detecting pressure changes in deep oceans, proved unexpectedly receptive to symphonic sound waves. Keyleth's specialized sensory organs, evolved to navigate methane seas, resonated with each string movement. Something long dormant awakened in the ambassador's brain. Neural pathways the Concordat's genetic engineers had attempted to eliminate but had only managed to suppress. When the orchestra reached the symphony's crescendo, Keyleth experienced something no Muran had felt in 15 generations: aesthetic appreciation. The concept had no translation in modern Muran language. Later, trembling with the implications of this awakening, Keyleth returned to the emergency hospital. The Malaysian doctor looked up in surprise as the alien approached. "Why?" Keyleth asked simply, gesturing to where she was treating an elderly Indonesian man. "Why what?" Resources directed to non-productive units. Historical enemies receiving priority care. 11 nations cooperating without hierarchical enforcement. None of this follows optimal efficiency protocols. The doctor looked confused. Because they're people who need help. Keyleth's translator struggled with the concept, offering alternatives. optimization units requiring maintenance, resource consumption entities needing repair. No, the doctor corrected. People. Killeth stored this linguistic anomaly for further analysis. That night, the ambassador made no report to Concordat superiors about the day's observations, the first such protocol violation in Killeth's diplomatic career. Instead, Killeth replayed a covertly recorded segment of Vork's symphony, experiencing again that strange awakening, and wondering what else the Concordat might have taken from the Muran people. Lieutenant Maya Castillo checked her tactical display one final time. The infiltration team's stealth ship had successfully attached to the Concordat relay station's maintenance dock, appearing on alien sensors as a scheduled service drone. 20 years as a Navy SEAL hadn't prepared her for space combat, but the fundamentals remained the same. Move silently, strike decisively, complete the mission at all costs. Breach team ready, she whispered, though the quantum-encrypted comms made whispering unnecessary. Ready, Lieutenant. Sergeant Kim adjusted his exo-armor, a hybrid of reverse-engineered Concordat technology and human ingenuity. Unlike the bulky environmental suits the aliens used, these sleek combat shells provided both protection and enhanced strength while maintaining human agility. Maya nodded to Dr. Prisha Mehta, who clutched the real payload of their mission, a specialized data drive containing Marcus's disruptive algorithm. Remember, Doctor, we get you to the central processor. You do your thing. We get out. 20 minutes total. The algorithm needs only 30 seconds to upload, Prisha said, her hand steady despite never having been in combat. After that, it propagates autonomously. Initiate breach on my mark, Maya instructed. 3, 2, 1. Execute. The airlock cycled open, and Maya's team flowed into the station with practiced precision. Their first obstacle appeared immediately, 2 Vekaran maintenance drones. Before the insectoid aliens could activate alarms, Kim and Corporal Jackson neutralized them with targeted electrical pulses designed to disrupt Vekaran neural systems without killing. Unconscious, not dead, Maya confirmed, checking the aliens' vital signs with her suit sensors. Remember, we're not here for body count. The station's architecture was disorienting. Corridors that curved in mathematically perfect spirals, lighting that shifted in patterns optimized for non-human vision. Maya relied on the holographic overlay in her helmet, displaying the schematics Killeth had provided. Central processor, 2 levels up, she directed. Maintenance shaft access point 30 meters ahead. They encountered surprisingly little resistance. Admiral Okafor's diversionary attack had worked perfectly. The station's security forces had been dispatched to defend against a non-existent frontal assault. As they reached the maintenance shaft, Maya's tactical instincts flared. Hold position, she ordered. Something's wrong. The access point was unguarded, but Maya detected slight distortions in the air, almost imperceptible ripples. Spectrum shift, she commanded her helmet sensors. The view changed, revealing what human eyes couldn't naturally see. A security field of crisscrossing energy beams. They've upgraded since Killeth's intel, she muttered. Jackson, countermeasures. The corporal deployed a specialized device that projected matching energy frequencies, creating a temporary corridor through the security field. We have 90 seconds before the system detects the harmonics, he warned. Move. The team climbed rapidly through the shaft, emerging into the central processing chamber, a cavernous space dominated by a crystalline structure that pulsed with blue-white light. Unlike human server farms with their orderly rows of hardware, the Concordat's quantum processor resembled a massive, geometric jellyfish, its crystalline tendrils extending throughout the station. That's not what we expected, Prisha whispered. Can you still upload the algorithm? Maya asked, establishing a defensive perimeter with her team. I think so, but I need to find the input node. A high-pitched alarm suddenly blared through the chamber. On the far side, a security door slid open, revealing 4 setted guards, hulking amphibious creatures in specialized battle armor. We've got company, Maya announced calmly. Kim Jackson, defensive pattern Delta. By the doctor sometime. As her team engaged the guards with precisely targeted electrical disruptors, Maya escorted Prisha around the crystalline processor. There, the scientist pointed. That pulsing node. It's receiving data packets. It must be an input junction. Maya provided cover as Prisha connected Marcus's device to the alien technology. The connection point glowed red, then yellow, as incompatible systems negotiated interface protocols. Hurry, Maya urged as more alarms activated throughout the station. Almost there, Prisha exclaimed as the connection turned green. The algorithm began uploading, and the crystalline structure's pulsing rhythm faltered momentarily before resuming at a slightly different frequency. It's in 30 seconds to full integration. On the other side of the chamber, Kim and Jackson were being pushed back by reinforcements. A stray energy blast struck near Maya, sending crystalline shards flying. 20 seconds. Prisha counted down, her eyes fixed on the upload progress. Maya made a quick decision. New extraction plan. Jackson, emergency protocols. Designate alternative exit route. 10 seconds. Prisha reported. The crystalline processor's glow intensified, its pattern becoming erratic as Marcus's chaos mathematics infiltrated the perfectly ordered Concordat system. Done, Prisha announced. The algorithm is self-propagating now. As they retreated through an emergency access tube, Maya caught a final glimpse of the processor. Its perfect geometric patterns were dissolving into chaotic fractal configurations, human mathematics overwhelming alien order. The rebellion had struck its first blow, not with overwhelming force, but with something the Concordat couldn't comprehend. Chaos by design. High Coordinator Sith had never experienced actual darkness in the central chamber. For the 342 years of the Coordinator's existence, the vast crystalline dome had maintained perfect illumination, synchronized to the collective biorhythms of the Vox representatives. Now, emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across faces evolved for clarity and order. 17 sectors simultaneously. Sith demanded, mandibles clicking in agitation. That defies statistical possibility. Central Intelligence Administrator Troll's skin paled to anxious white. The disruption propagates through our quantum network following no discernible pattern. It's as if. The administrator hesitated, searching for an appropriate analogy. As if the network were infected with randomness itself. Randomness is merely pattern complexity beyond current analysis. Sith recited from Concordat Doctrine. Deploy the backup communication protocols. We already have. The disruption follows our shifts. This statement caused a ripple of disquiet through the assembled officials. The Concordat's contingency systems were separated by dimensional barriers. They shouldn't be capable of simultaneous compromise. On the observation deck overlooking the chamber, Ambassador K'lith watched the unprecedented chaos with divided loyalties. The Muran's recent experiences on Earth had planted dangerous questions. Now, seeing the collective's perfect synchronization failing, those questions grew louder. K'lith's secure diplomatic communicator vibrated. The ambassador hesitated, then activated it. Hello, Ambassador. The human face that appeared wasn't supposed to be possible. Concordat communicators were quantum encrypted. Commander Eliza Chen here. I believe we have matters to discuss. K'lith glanced around, but the collective was too focused on their crisis to notice one ambassador's communication. This channel is secured by 11 layers of quantum encryption, K'lith responded. Was secured, Eliza corrected. We're having this conversation because those encryptions no longer function as designed. What do you want? To offer you something the Concordat never has. A choice. K'lith's respiratory bladders constricted. Choice was a dangerous concept, one the Concordat had systematically eliminated from member species cultures. I'm listening. The disruption affecting Concordat communications isn't random. It's precisely targeted to create communication windows between subjugated worlds. For the first time in millennia, species can speak directly to each other without Concordat monitoring or mediation. As if to confirm her statement, alarms blared through the chamber below. Administrator Trull rushed to High Coordinator Sith. "We've detected unauthorized communications between the Saurian homeworld and the Pelty Nomad fleet. On the Saurian homeworld Drax IV, rebel leader Iskora stared at her terminal in disbelief. The face looking back at her wasn't Saurian. It belonged to Commander Eliza Chen of Earth. Such direct contact between worlds without Concordat mediation was supposed to be technologically impossible. "We don't want to rule you," Eliza explained. "We want to stand beside you." Skora's cranial frills flared in confusion. The Saurian language contained mandatory hierarchical indicators in every sentence structure. The concept Eliza expressed was linguistically paradoxical. Yet somehow, the translation captured it. Equality. Skora tested the word, finding it strange on her forked tongue. The Concordat teaches that biological hierarchy is universal law. They lied. Eliza replied simply. As they've lied about your history, your potential, and their right to determine your future. Meanwhile, Kaleth made a decision that would alter the course of galactic history. The ambassador slipped away from the observation deck and headed toward the diplomatic hangar. The data core hidden beneath Kaleth's environmental suit contained the complete schematics of the Concordat's command structure. Information so classified that most Concordat species didn't know it existed. Security drones detected the unauthorized movement and converged on the ambassador's position. Kaleth's transport pod accelerated through the station's security barriers, evading the first wave of pursuers. "I've chosen," Kaleth transmitted to Eliza as enforcement drones closed in. Transmitting coordinates for extraction. Throughout former Concordat space, similar conversations were happening. Species that had never been allowed direct communication bypassed Concordat channels, creating something unprecedented. Peer-to-peer diplomacy. On the mining world Hestrian, Pelty laborers received transmissions from their nomad fleet for the first time in generations. On the warrior planet Drak, Setted commanders learned that their eternal enemies, the Voss, had never launched the attack that began their 1,000-year conflict. The Concordat had staged it. The rigid structure that had dominated the galaxy for millennia began shattering, not from military defeat, but from something far more potent: the free exchange of information. As secured channels between subjugated worlds multiplied exponentially, the galaxy experienced something it had forgotten: conversation without oversight. Humanity had introduced the most dangerous weapon of all: the freedom to choose. Dr. Sofia Rodriguez had expected the Concordat archives to contain military secrets, technological specifications, perhaps strategic vulnerabilities. What she hadn't anticipated was discovering the greatest crime in galactic history. "This can't be right," she whispered, her face illuminated by the holographic display where alien text scrolled endlessly. The xenolinguistic translation matrix had finally decrypted the highest security clearance files from the archives that Lieutenant Castillo's team had copied during their raid. Dr. Amit Patel, her colleague in xenoanthropology, looked equally stunned. "Cross-reference with the Pelty Cultural Database," he suggested, "if this is accurate." Sophia's fingers danced across the interface, pulling up two parallel histories, one from the Concordat official records, the other reconstructed from fragments preserved in obscure Pelty religious texts that had escaped Concordat censors. "It matches," she confirmed, her voice hollow. The Pelty weren't always nomadic scavengers. They built the crystal cities of the Andromeda Rim. Their architecture was legendary. The Concordat didn't save them from extinction, as their official history claims. They systematically dismantled their civilization and then erased the memory of it. And the Drikari. Amit pulled up another file. They weren't created as warrior servants. The genetic modifications were forced on them. They were philosophers before the Concordat altered their brain chemistry to enhance aggression and compliance. Sophia stood abruptly, pacing the secure lab buried deep beneath the Sierra Nevada mountains. It's not just selective editing of history, she realized. It's complete cultural genocide, repeated across dozens, maybe hundreds of species. She activated the secure communication channel to Commander Chen. "Eliza, the Concordat archives. It's worse than we imagined. They've been systematically erasing and rewriting the histories of every species they encounter. Not just minor revisions, complete replacement of cultural memory." Eliza's face on the holographic display was grim. "Can you reconstruct the actual histories?" "Partially. There are fragments preserved in religious texts, folklore, architectural anomalies that survived censorship, with Kileth's help translating some of the older dialects." "Do it," Eliza interrupted, "and prepare a distribution package for Marcus's network. Truth is a weapon the Concordat has no defense against." 48 hours later, Sophia stood before Earth's Combined Defense Council, presenting the fruits of her team's sleepless efforts. "The Historical Truth Initiative," she announced, displaying a galaxy map with pulsing indicators representing different species. Each packet contains recovered historical information specific to that species, along with evidence of Concordat tampering. Admiral Okafor studied the presentation with military precision. "And you believe this information will impact Concordat control more effectively than direct military action? Identity is more powerful than any weapon," Sophia explained. "The Concordat's control isn't maintained primarily through military force, but through carefully constructed narratives that position them as saviors and natural rulers. When species discover they once had advanced civilizations that were deliberately dismantled, they'll rebel," General Rivera finished. "They already are," Sophia corrected, highlighting several systems now pulsing red. "These transmission confirmations show the information packets have been received and are spreading rapidly." The Setted Confederacy was considered the most loyal Concordat client state. Now look. The display shifted to show real-time footage from the Setted homeworld. Massive protests filled the amphibious species' floating cities, with Setted civilians tearing down Concordat monuments. The Setted just discovered they weren't uplifted from primitive swamp creatures, as they've been taught for generations, Sophia explained. They were an advanced aquatic civilization with interstellar travel capabilities before the Concordat arrived. Their entire cultural identity was fabricated. On the mining world Hestrian, the effects were even more dramatic. Security footage showed Pelty workers spontaneously laying down tools mid-shift, gathering in communal spaces where elders began reciting forgotten songs of freedom, cultural memories preserved orally for generations, hidden from Concordat sensors. Sophia zoomed in on a particular Pelty gathering. An elder stood atop a mining vehicle, crystal tears sliding down his faceted face as he sang words that translated roughly to, "Remember the spires that touched the triple moons. Remember the halls where our voices rang true." Their architecture wasn't just functional, Sophia explained quietly. It was their art form, their spiritual expression. The Concordat reduced them to mining their own sacred crystals to build Concordat structures. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. This wasn't merely a strategic victory. It was the beginning of a moral reckoning on a galactic scale. The silence was shattered by an emergency alert. Admiral Okafor activated the command channel. "Report." "Sir," came the tense response. "The Concordat has activated the Purifier fleet. They've just destroyed Taurus Prime. 4 billion lives. Gone." The display shifted to show a star system where a habitable world had been reduced to asteroidal debris. The Concordat's message was clear. Rebellion would be met with extinction. What they failed to understand was that their act of desperation had only validated Earth's rebellion. As news of Taurus Prime's destruction spread through Marcus's network, species that had hesitated now committed fully to resistance. The Vox Collective had revealed their true nature, and the galaxy would never view them as benevolent shepherds again. "They're coming for Earth." Admiral Okafor's announcement silenced the War Council. The holographic display showed the unmistakable signature of the Concordat's dreaded Purifier fleet changing course toward the Sol system. Arrival estimate: 72 hours. General Rivera studied the tactical projections. Conventional strategy dictates consolidation of forces for home defense. Which is exactly what they expect, Okafor replied. He gestured, and the display expanded to show dozens of star systems. Operation Hydra isn't about defending Earth. It's about attacking everywhere simultaneously. The assembled military leaders murmured in confusion. Okafor highlighted 7 systems where allied species had committed forces to the rebellion. Our advantage isn't firepower. It's adaptability. We've embedded human tactical advisors with each allied species military. On the Drakari battle cruiser Fist of Ancestral Vengeance, Lieutenant Connor Reynolds tried not to flinch as Commander T-Vex slammed 4-fingered fists onto the tactical table. The massive warrior's exoskeleton clicked with agitation. Your plan dishonors the warrior code. T-Vex growled through translator implants. Drakari face enemies directly. We do not. Skulk. Reynolds maintained eye contact, crucial when dealing with Drakari. The Concordat designed your species to think that way, he explained carefully. They modified your ancestors' genetics to create the perfect shock troops. Strong, brave, and predictable. T-Vex's upper eye ridges twitched. The recent historical revelations about Drakari origins, that they were descended from philosopher-scientists, not natural warriors, had shaken the species to its core. Show me this. Skulking, T-Vex demanded. Reynolds activated the tactical simulator. Standard Drakari attack pattern against a Concordat supply depot. The simulation showed direct engagement resulting in heavy Drakari casualties. Now, with guerrilla tactics, the new simulation showed a small force creating diversions while infiltration teams disabled the depot's defenses from multiple angles. 0 casualties, Reynolds pointed out. Same objective achieved. This is not warfare, T-Vex objected. This is trickery. It's adaptation, Reynolds countered. Your ancestors were renowned for intellectual flexibility before the Concordat remade you as living weapons. That adaptive intelligence is still in your DNA. 3 days later, Lieutenant Reynolds stood in stunned silence as Commander T-Vex ceremonially severed one of his 4 arms, cauterized the wound, and offered the limb to the human. Highest honor in Drakari culture, the tactical officer whispered to Reynolds. Symbolizes giving a part of oneself to another warrior. Reynolds had earned this honor by helping plan the most successful raid in recent Drakari military history, a multi-pronged guerrilla assault on the Concordat supply depot that had yielded massive resource captures without a single casualty. As the Purifier fleet approached Earth, they encountered not Earth's consolidated defenses, but waves of coordinated attacks from unexpected vectors. Human ingenuity had spread like a beneficial virus through allied forces, species adapting human tactical innovations to their unique physiologies and technologies. Saurian pilots executed barrel rolls and split-est maneuvers their rigid bodies shouldn't have been capable of, having modified their craft's inertial dampeners based on Earth fighter designs. Pelty engineers had reconfigured human-designed EMP weapons to work with their crystalline technology, creating disruptors that could temporarily blind Concordat targeting systems. Aboard the Purifier fleet's command vessel, High Enforcers X struggled to process the tactical chaos. This defies all combat prediction models, the Enforcer reported to the Vox Collective. We're facing 7 different species using hybrid tactics that follow no established patterns. When the Concordat's forward elements pressed toward Earth, they encountered Admiral Okafor's final surprise. The planet's orbital defenses had been evacuated. Instead, automated systems mimicked defensive patterns, while Earth's actual combat vessels conducted precision strikes against the Purifier fleet's vulnerable propulsion nodes, a weakness identified in Koleth's intelligence cache. Request immediate tactical directives, High Enforcers X demanded as reports of breaches flooded in from throughout the fleet. The response from the Vox Collective came with unprecedented delay, their perfect unity fractured by continued communication disruptions. When orders finally arrived, they were already obsolete. The battle situation had evolved too rapidly for centralized command to respond effectively. Meanwhile, Operation Hydra's decentralized battle groups acted with local autonomy while maintaining strategic coordination, A command approached the hierarchical Concordat, could neither comprehend nor counter. As the Purifier fleet's formation began to disintegrate under the assault from multiple vectors, Admiral Okafor monitored from his command center on Titan. "Press the advantage," he ordered. "Don't give them time to adapt." The resulting battle became the most chaotic in recorded galactic history, with Allied forces constantly shifting tactics while the Concordat military struggled to respond without direct orders. The High Enforcer's final transmission before the command vessel's destruction contained a concept previously absent from Concordat tactical vocabulary: confusion. What the Concordat had failed to understand was that humanity's greatest military gift wasn't superior technology or overwhelming force. It was the ability to embrace and harness chaos itself. The ancient council chambers of the Vox Collective had always been designed to reinforce hierarchy. For millennia, species representatives ascended progressively higher platforms according to their status, with the high coordinators enthroned at the apex. The architecture itself communicated the immutable nature of cosmic order. Now, those same chambers hosted something unprecedented. Eliza Chen walked the circumference of the massive circular table that had replaced the hierarchical platforms. Her fingers traced the table's surface, a composite material incorporating elements from 23 liberated worlds. The Pelti had contributed their sacred crystals, the Dracari their metallic alloys, Earth its carbon composites, the Saurians their thermal-regulating stone. "There is no head to this table," she explained to the assembled representatives. "By design." Ambassador Kaleth, now wearing modified environmental gear that incorporated Earth design elements, observed with a perspective unique among those present. Having experienced both the rigid Concordat hierarchy and humanity's chaotic cooperation, many of you have asked about the governance structure of our proposed stellar commonwealth, Eliza continued. The answer may seem unsatisfying. It's evolving. Unlike the Concordat, we don't claim to have perfected civilization. The seated representative, General Morak, raised a webbed hand. Without hierarchy, how will decisions be made? Through consensus where possible, transparent voting where necessary, and with respect for sovereign autonomy always, Eliza replied. Species are not uniform biological directives to be optimized. They're living cultures with the right to self-determination. For some representatives, these concepts remained difficult to process. The Voss delegate, whose species had evolved as colony organisms, struggled with the very concept of individual rights. The Dracari, engineered for millennia to value strength above all, were wary of systems that didn't establish clear dominance hierarchies. Yet all had witnessed the failure of the perfect Concordat order, and all had experienced the surprising effectiveness of adaptive cooperation. On the Commonwealth's founding day, representatives from across the galaxy gathered in the rebuilt United Nations headquarters in New York. Earth, having sparked the rebellion, had been chosen as the symbolic birthplace of the new galactic community. The ceremony's emotional peak arrived as Dracari warriors, seated philosophers, and human diplomats together activated the Galactic Memorial, an installation preserving the names of every world and species lost to Concordat oppression. As the memorial's lights illuminated, forming a galactic map highlighting both what was lost and what might now be built, Admiral Okafor stood beside Commander Chen on the observation deck. "We didn't just win a war," Eliza said quietly. "We changed the nature of civilization itself." Below them, human children played alongside Saurian hatchlings and Pelti younglings in what was once the UN garden, now filled with plants from a dozen worlds. The scene would have been incomprehensible to the Concordat's efficiency-focused mindset. Resources expended on non-productive social bonding between non-kin species. Yet this inefficiency represented the Commonwealth's greatest strength, the capacity to value connection over control. The stellar Commonwealth faced enormous challenges. Some former Concordat officials were tried for war crimes, but many ordinary citizens of Concordat species were welcomed into the new order. The trauma of historical revelation left psychological scars across dozens of species. Resource disparities between formerly privileged and exploited worlds created economic tensions. Ambassador K'leth, now Earth's first non-human citizen, worked tirelessly to establish reconciliation protocols between former oppressors and liberated worlds. The Muran's unique insight into both perspectives made K'leth invaluable in bridging cultural divides. The Concordat maintained that chaos is the enemy of civilization. K'leth remarked to Eliza as they watched ships from 100 worlds move peacefully through Earth's solar system. But I've learned that what they called chaos, humans call freedom. Eliza smiled. Freedom is messy. It's inefficient. It allows for mistakes. And innovation, K'leth added. And joy. The concept of joy had only recently returned to the Muran lexicon, after centuries of Concordat suppression. As night fell over Earth, stars appeared in the sky, each potentially home to civilizations yet undiscovered. The Commonwealth had already begun dismantling the Concordat's restrictive boundary beacons that had isolated the galaxy from the wider universe. What do you think we'll find out there? K'leth asked, gazing upward. I don't know, Eliza replied honestly. And that's the most exciting part. The old order hadn't just collapsed. It had been replaced by something fundamentally stronger. A civilization founded not on dominance, but on the radical concepts of liberty and cooperation. The Terrestrial Rebellion had transformed not just who governed the galaxy, but how governance itself was conceived. Humanity's greatest gift to the stars had never been technology or military tactics. It had been possibility, the audacious idea that the future need not be determined by the past.